MS-755 fleuret meaning fencing foil. That was to meet a requirement of the Armée de l'Air, the French Air Force. That was met by the fouga CM-170 Magister, from which the Zephyr that I'll be talking about shortly was derived. But Morane decided to develop the fleuret design as a four-seat light transport and communications aircraft with a view to use not just by militaries potentially, but also by civil customers. And that appeared with a first flight in July 1954 as the MS-760 Paris, and that's the aircraft that's leading the formation about to run in from our left. Early on, the Paris was ordered in quantity by the French military, which took 50 examples for use as liaison aircraft, and the French Naval Air Arm was the first operator with 14 of them. But they didn't just use them as light transports and communications machines. They had various training tasks still, training in instrument flying, refresher training for officers who'd been on a non-flying staff tour, that sort of thing. They were also used sometimes as radar targets. The French Navy had them in service until 1997. The French Air Force, meanwhile, which had 36 MS-760s, kept them on until 2001. And the Argentinian Air Force, which had them built under license in Argentina, had its Paris in service until 2007. 219 were built. It wasn't very successful as a commercial light jet. There were hopes of sales in the US at a time when corporate aircraft were really burgeoning as an industry. They came virtually to nothing. Frank Sinatra is believed to have owned one at one time, though. Government's civilian flying school operated a few Paris. The Cranfield College of Aeronautics, now Cranfield University, had one as a flying laboratory. More powerful Mark II failed to help sales much on the civilian scene, and the six-seat development won no orders at all. But like most Morane aircraft, its flying qualities were hugely praised. And an early flight test of one in Flight magazine in 1956 saw the test pilot Mark Lambert writing, "I rolled it as cautiously as if I was turning over a crate of eggs. I need not have worried. The aircraft behaved perfectly, showing no unnatural tendency to fall out of the roll or do anything strange. I rolled again several times, taking care, for the passenger's sake, to apply the minimum of negative G, and felt rather pleased at performing at least a minor aerobatic manoeuvre in a jet aircraft carrying 4 people. I still look back on my trip in the Paris as one of the most pleasant I have had in any kind of executive aircraft." As far as the French military was concerned, I was talking a few years ago to a retired senior Air Force officer, Colonel Pierre-Alain Antoine, who said she was a good liaison aircraft for senior officers, pressurized with good performance, but with a short range with 4 aboard. Nonetheless, a tremendous part of French post-war aviation history. Following it, the very distinctive shape of the Zephyr, Gaston Fouga founded an aircraft company in 1935. He employed 2 noted aircraft engineers, Robert Castello and Pierre Mauboussin, hence the CM, the Castello et Mauboussin designation that the CM-175 has. They started building gliders. One of them, the CM-8, 1949, had a V-tail arrangement. The idea was mainly to reduce the drag. One of those was fitted with a small turbomecha jet engine. It performed very well, and a twin-jet version was conceived. By then, the design had moved on to the CM-170 jet trainer. That first flew in 1952, and it was ordered into production for the French Air Force, the Armée de l'Air, as the Magister. It was hugely popular with its pilots due to its delightful handling and a very effective lead-in to the frontline jets of the day. It was most famous, the Magister, as the mount from 1964 to 1980 of the French National Aerobatic Team, the Patrouille de France. They were sold also to 17 other countries. France's Naval Air Arm wanted a jet for carrier training, and the Magister seemed an ideal choice. Fouga offered a modified version. They altered the design, they gave it an arrestor hook and attachment points for catapult launchers. The structure was generally beefed up, the undercarriage reinforced, and it was given sliding canopies which would be open for operations on the carrier to facilitate the escape, if necessary, of the crew due to the lack of ejection seats. It also has a slightly less powerful version of the morane engine than the Air Force Magister. And there's a definite British connection with the Zephyr, because testing of the type included trials at the Royal Aircraft Establishment at Bedford, but also at Royal Naval Air Station Ford in Sussex, and aboard two Royal Navy carriers, HMS Bulwark and HMS Eagle. 30 Zephyrs were built. They entered service in 1959, and they trained whole generations of naval pilots aboard. First of all, the early French carrier Avalanche, the later carriers the Foch and the Clemenceau. In total, the Zephyrs of the Aéronaval carried out nearly 5,300 carrier traps when they were retired. Training of French Navy carrier fighter pilots switched to the US Navy. Here it comes past with an arrestor hook dangling from the rear fuselage. Escadrille de Servitude 59S had the last Zephyrs in French Navy service in 1994, and this was one of them. It's now the only flying example in the world. It's owned by the Association Zephyr 28, which is dedicated to its upkeep in flying condition, number 28 being the serial number on the side. And they enjoy a great deal of support and assistance from people associated with the Zephyr in service, of whom there were many. This Paris, meanwhile, was one of 8 of the original 14 supplied to the French Navy that was still in service on retirement in 1997. It then went through a long and complex process to put it on the French Civil Register with a lot of requirements that needed to be overcome relating to demilitarization of the aeroplane and so forth. But the Armement Aéropassion Association was successful. It took to the air again in May 2003 and has been on the airshow circuit ever since. It's the only flying Paris in Europe. There are several, though, still airworthy in the USA. 2 aircraft forming up once again out to our left, and they'll be coming in for one more run-in, and from that the break to land. While the 2 aircraft are in the landing circuit, a quick message